We recently lost a great artist who died way before his time. At 26 years of age, he's no longer with us. We will never see what his peak could have been in music, how far he could have took his musical talent. To the family, to the relatives, to the fans, to everybody that loved Mac Miller, the Past to Present podcast sends its condolences. Mac Miller died way before his time. He was a very talented artist who was loved by many artists that was in the music business. Unfortunately, his life was cut short to overdose. In today's subject, we're going to address the effects of overdose and drug effect, and the effect that drugs have on all of our relatives. Hope you join me and continue to check out the show. As I said, to Mac Miller's family, friends, fans, and relatives, my condolences go with them. And I pray that you're comforted in your time of loss. Welcome to the Past to Present podcast. I'm your host, Alan the Great. To all my subscribers, to everybody who's been checking out the show consistently, all my fans, everybody that's been sharing, liking the videos, I want to tell you thank you and how much I really appreciate and love you all. I appreciate your support, and I pray that you continue to support the show, continue to show the show some love. We appreciate it. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to the video. Hit the subscribe button below. Like the video. It's okay. Share the video. But trust me, don't worry. We'll be real discreet about it. We won't tell nobody that you shared the video, that you liked the video, that you subscribed to the video. I wouldn't want y'all to lose no Instagram followers or no Twitter followers. I know how important that is nowadays, and I don't want y'all to lose them. So trust me, I'll be very discreet about it, and I won't let nobody know, okay? So just go ahead and hit the subscribe button, all right? Seriously, hit the subscribe button, people, and I appreciate it. So you already read the description, you already read the title, you already know how this goes. And you already know how the show goes. If you've been watching it, you already know how it goes. So let's just get right into it. But before we get into the show, I have to tell you a story, okay? I have to make an admission to all my fans, to all my listeners right now. I have an addiction problem. I have a problem, all right? Now, my problem is not with drugs, okay? Let me just clarify it right out the gate. It's not with drugs. I got an addiction to sneakers, okay? Let me tell you a quick story about my addiction and where I found out that I have an addiction to sneakers, okay? I was going to the sneaker store to buy my nephew some school sneakers, right? He's about to start high school, first year of high school. I wanted to make sure he had some sneakers. He wanted some Jordans. So I went to the sneaker store to get him some, all right? Went to the sneaker store to get him some. While I'm in there getting his sneakers, I seen these Supreme Nikes. Now, younger people might know what this is. Older people probably, what are Supreme Nikes? They're really popular brand right now. They're rare sneakers. So I seen these Supremes. So I said, oh my gosh, I gotta get them. So I asked the people at the sneaker store, do you have my size? Of course, they only had one pair of my size. Sneakers were really rare. Now, the price tag was a little up there, so I had to call my wife, like, yo, you have these sneakers I want. These sneakers are really rare. And I'm like hyperventilating and stuff. She's like, what the heck is wrong with you? You all right? Is everything all right? I'm like, yes, you don't understand. You don't understand. They have these sneakers. I've been looking for them forever. They're really rare. I gotta get them. I gotta get them. She's like, well, how much are they? And I told her the price. She's like, yeah, you know if you buy them, you're not even going to wear it. They're going to sit on the shelf. It's not the point that I'm not going to wear them. I just got to have them. I got to have them. So she tried to go through the pros and cons. Because you know what addiction they tell you. Go through the pros and cons of do you need something? Do you not? Why are you doing this? Why you shouldn't do it? So she goes through all that trying to talk to me. Long story short, she's like, you know what? After probably 5-10 minutes trying to talk me out of getting sneakers, she said, just go ahead and get them. Just go ahead and get the sneakers. By that point, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna buy them. You know why I said I ain't gonna buy them? Because at that point I realized when I'm sitting here in a sneaker store hyperventilating and people looking at me like I'm crazy, calling my wife up, telling her how bad I gotta have a pair of sneakers that most likely I'm not even gonna wear, I realized at that point I have a problem. I have a problem. I also understood where my problem comes from. My problem comes from my mom was a single mother. She didn't always have the money to buy me the sneakers I wanted. She did try her best to always keep me in a pair of Jordans or get sneakers from me, but she wasn't always able to get them. As I got older, it became harder to get me the sneakers I wanted. So, as an older person, listen, I'm buying, as I got money, now I got money, I'm buying every sneaker I want now. And sometimes I OD on it just trying to relive my childhood. But it's kind of like segues into drug addiction and why people truly do drugs. A lot of us have relatives, family members that's either on drugs, died from drugs, recovered from drugs. We all have them affect them. If you got parents right now, grandparents out now, I'm gonna tell you something right now. I'll tell you something right now. You probably have a grandparent, family member that did drugs at one point in your life who was telling you not to smoke weed behind the school, but they were smoking weed behind school. All right? But we ain't going to talk about that. We digressing. All right? So let's get on the subject, okay? And we're not going to tell, trust me, don't worry, people, because I know you don't like talking about history. So we're not going to talk about how drugs was founded in South America in 1860 because the native people was sucking on coca leaf plants and it gave them hyper energy. It increased their sex drive. We ain't gonna talk about that. It made them give them a crazy sex drive. We're not gonna talk about that. We're not gonna talk about a person from Europe who actually founded these drugs and took them back to Europe. The pharmaceutical or chemists took them back to Europe and turned it into they could turn this coca leaf plant into a paste and also into a powder that could be used as for medication to offset morphine, which was used for cataract surgery, but people was vomiting when they was doing cataract surgery. And I don't know if you ever had cataract surgery or you're familiar with it, but it's a surgery on your eyes. And if you're vomiting, that doesn't go well when somebody trying to do surgery in your eyes. But we ain't going to talk about that. We ain't going to talk about the history of that. We're not going to talk about that Coca Cola when they first started during the Prohibition, that they used to put cocaine, mix cocaine with sugary syrup to make Coca Cola. We ain't going to talk about that because that ain't important and y'all not interested in that, right? Yo, we don't want to talk about Coca-Cola doing that. We don't want to go into the history of that. We don't want to talk about that was Coke and wine, and that became a very popular drink all across Europe, where they're walking around with flasks with this wine laced with Coca-Cola, with Coke in it. We ain't going to talk about that. We ain't going to talk about the fact that they used to sell morphine in the Sears and Roebuck's catalog. We're not going to talk about that you could buy morphine and a needle to shoot up the morphine into your body in a Sears and Roebucks. And if you don't know what Sears and Roebucks was, catalog was, it was like you buying some heroin off Amazon now with a needle. We ain't gonna talk about that because you're not interested in the history of that. We're not even gonna talk about the fact that Christopher Columbus, when he was searching for Asia and he accidentally discovered America, was not really looking for spices and gold for Spain. He was truly looking for drugs that the Asian countries were high off, heroin that the Asian countries get high off. The Queen wanted drugs. We ain't gonna talk about that. We ain't gonna even get into that because you're not interested in history, right? So let's talk about something else. Let's talk about drug addiction. Drug addiction has been around forever. And a lot of times what we don't understand is why people get on drugs. We always say to our relatives or family members who's on drugs, why don't you just quit? Why don't you just stop doing drugs? Why don't they just quit it? They could just stop. It's not like smoking a cigarette. Drug addiction is a serious thing and it becomes a dependent. It becomes a point, drugs are so strong that they make you depend on it. Like our bodies depend on water and food. People who have drug addictions depend on the drugs. They have to have them. Their body ache, they get sick. It's a very nasty thing. It's a very nasty thing, and sometimes death is even better than going without the drugs. It becomes a thing where their body actually depends on these drugs. But we're going to put in the cart way before the horse, aren't we? So let's get right into it. Let's talk about how people naturally and what leads people to get into drugs. Or better yet, how about I talk about what makes me qualified to talk about drugs? Because probably what you're wondering, you're qualified to talk about sneaker addiction, but what about drugs? Have you ever done drugs? No, I've never done drugs. Never smoked weed, never done drugs a day in my life. Don't even drink. However, I've watched at a young age several of my close relatives smoke rock coke, what's it called? Crack, smoke crack, sniff coke. I've seen family members shoot up heroin. I grew up in the projects in the 80s. And anybody know about the 80s, it was a drug epidemic. Okay, this was when crack was at its height. It was at its height. I'm talking about when I went outside to play, there was drug caps all over the ground. I'm talking about you couldn't step, bounce a ball, anything without stepping on a crack vial. So yeah, I kind of know about it. I kind of know about the effects of drugs. And I kind of lived through drug addiction way before we got into the drug epidemic we live with now. I know a lot about it, and I dealt with a lot of people with drugs. So I'm kind of qualified to speak on it, at least from a perspective of a person who knows people that did drugs. So let's get into it. a lot of times when people are getting into these drugs and stuff, it's not that they were introduced to peer pressure. Where some were introduced to peer pressure, it's not always the case. A lot of people who are doing drugs are dealing with mental issues, dealing with issues of hurt in their past. They're grieving from something, and they need something to dull that pain. Cocaine used to be formed, I just told you, in cataract surgery. Cocaine was a numbness that helped get rid of headaches and stuff. Yes, it increased your sex drive. Yes, it gave you a lot of energy like a Red Bull, but at the same time, it also helped with headaches and all kinds of pain. Same with morphine. Same with heroin. These drugs numb pain. It's sort of like it numb pain. It can numb that nerve in your brain, that's that part of your brain that feels emotions, that feels sorrow, empathy for somebody. And a lot of people who are stuck on drugs, a lot of our family members who are dealing with this drug addiction, they're suffering from something. And a lot of times the problem is when people come to us and they're suffering from something, we're so caught up in our own lives that we really don't take the time to really acknowledge them and give them the help they need before they start doing drugs. We kind of brush them off, we push them off. If it's a boy or a young man, he's going through it, man, get over it, man. You need to toughen up. What somebody said to me not too long ago, if you got an issue, grab a tissue. Sounds kind of corny, but stuff like that. Or you might hear him say, cry me a river, build a bridge and get over it. You know, you never know. Somebody might have dealt with loss of lives. Like, I'm going to give you an example, okay? Give you an example. For y'all think I'm off subject, I'm right on subject. I lost my father at 5 years old. You understand what I mean? I lost my father at 5 years old. I don't mean that he died. I lost my father to drug addiction. I didn't understand at the time why my father separated from me, why he wasn't around, why he wasn't there at the critical points of my life. I didn't understand until I got much older what happened. And I'm going to share that with you today. I lost my father to drug addiction. And to set that up, let me tell you about my father before drug addiction. I remember vividly my dad. I remember his house was just the coolest house in the world. I wanted to be just like my father. I just admired everything about him. He was Hulk Hogan to me. So younger people, you might say John Cena or somebody like that. But he was that big to me. And what I didn't know was my grandfather was murdered at a young age. And then come to find out right before my uncle was supposed to be released from jail, he was then murdered the day before he was supposed to be released. This had a serious effect on my father to a point he turned to drugs to deal with the pain of this. What I was told as an older person, as I got older, was that my dad felt like he was going to be next, that he was going to die at a young age. And he felt so deep in that depression of fearing that he was going to die that the only thing that could take him away from that was the drug. So he started dabbling in drugs. He started dabbling in drugs to the point that he started dealing with hard drugs that took him away from me. I remember a time as I got a little bit older. Of course, I was older than 5. I think I was about 12, 13 years old. And my dad literally lived a quarter of a mile from me. And I walked down the street one day in the neighborhood, and I seen my dad. And I'm steady calling him. And I'm like walking towards him. And he didn't even know who the hell I was. It's not funny that he really just didn't even know who I was. He didn't know who I was. Couldn't even see me even though I stand right in front of him. And that's how powerful these drugs are. Now, of course, now as older, I forgave my dad for it. Even though some of the things I seen my dad do still burned in my memory. It took me a long time to gain back that relationship, that respect for my father that I once had. But we do have a better relationship now. But this is not just a story that depicts my life or something that happened in my life. This is a story that happened in a lot of your lives. And a lot of you out there, my listeners, are dealing with somebody. Maybe it wasn't your father. Maybe it was your mother. Maybe it was your cousin, your aunt, your grandmother, your grandfather. Maybe it's your son or daughter. But you're dealing with somebody that dealt with similar drug addiction. But you don't understand why they're dealing with it. You don't understand the effects of it. See, I talked about, we don't want to talk about the history of drugs and how they were manufactured through pharmaceuticals and used as a healing process that later they found out was strongly addictive, that drugs were strongly addictive. Even though they were effective of relieving pain, they were also they were very addictive and hard to get off. In fact, the pharmaceutical actually shot cocaine into a mouse, and the mouse rather did the drugs than eat. It didn't want to eat, it didn't want to drink, it was more concerned with the drugs than food. That's serious. That's serious. But I digress, right? But a lot of you dealing with this, but you don't truly understand the effects of it. And the difference is with the drugs that's now from the drugs from the past that came from these opiate plants, these coca leaf plants, is that these drugs are not just coming from these plants. They're talking about when you're dealing with fentanyl, which is the opiate that's really causing overdoses. I'm telling you, people, listen, there's 115 overdoses per day in this country right now. This is a serious epidemic. It's so bad now that police officers have to be trained and care about Narcan, which is the drug that reverses the effects of overdose now. They have to carry that around now because it's so many overdose. It's so bad with these drug addictions now that people are actually calling the police on their own family members, not to get them locked up, but to get them help before they actually overdose and die from these drugs. And fentanyl is no joke. And if you don't know the history about fentanyl, let me just tell you briefly that this is a drug that allegedly took out Prince. Yes, the great artist Prince had supposedly overdosed from off of fentanyl. So it's a serious drug right now. And the interesting thing is, when I talk about the Sears and Roebuck's catalog, and you can order morphine, a drug needle is, you can order fentanyl right off of the black market right now. You can get on a website and you can order right now fentanyl right offline. Have it shipped to your house discreetly. You ain't got to go to the corner and buy drugs no more. You can just order offline. And this drug is serious because these drugs are being manufactured into labs. They're mixing morphine with heroin, with opiates, and they're creating these super drugs that people's body just can't handle. And they're extremely addictive. But it's even deeper than that because we talk about pharmaceuticals, and let's talk about it a second. You remember when, a lot of you probably don't remember this. A lot of you don't remember this because you're too young, but back before they had Rite Aid and CVS's, you used to have corner store drugstores. You had Bob's drugstore, Bob's Pharmacy, or Eric's Pharmacy, or the Henry House Pharmacy. You had these pharmacies, but we ain't never had a pharmacy. But you had these smaller pharmacies ran by little town, the mom and pop pharmacies. But they got taken over by the CVS's, the Walgreens, the Rite Aid. So they didn't really exist until now. Now, when I go through the city and I go through the hood, I see more local little pharmacies. I'm not talking about CVS's, Rite Aids. I'm talking about little mom and pop pharmacies than I do McDonald's, Chinese stores, and liquor stores. Let me tell you something. If you've ever been in the hood, you know there's several things that just overpopulate everything else. Chinese stores, liquor stores, McDonald's is everywhere. Well, not McDonald's, but Chinese stores and liquor stores is like literally on every corner, okay? And now it's like pharmacies are starting to compete with them. But why? Why are these pharmacies, where's this epic growth of pharmacies coming from? It's because now people are so hooked on these Percocets, these Xanax, the Adderalls, these drugs that's being given to people, to patients. I went in to get my wisdom tooth extracted, okay? I went to get my wisdom tooth extracted, and the doctor was like, you're going to be in pain for a few days, and try to prescribe me some Percocet. I said, no, I'm good. You can give me the strongest Motrin you got, or I'll buy some over top of the counter. I'm good. I don't want that. He's like, well, you're going to be in a lot of pain. I'll deal with the pain, because I'd rather deal with the pain than deal with possibly having a drug addiction. Listen, I told y'all, I'm addicted to sneakers. And I do have addictive personality. As much as I'm joking about it, I do have a very addictive personality. I have family members that deal with alcoholism, and drug addiction. And it runs heavy in my family, so I know that I have addictive personality. So I'm not even going to take the chance of taking drugs to be a part of that. I've seen what it's done to my family. I've seen family members who had amazing jobs, had amazing careers, lose it because of alcohol addiction. Constantly getting DUIs. I seen what it did to my family members. I seen what the drug addiction did to my dad. I seen what it did to multiple people in my family. Like I told you, I seen people I love, I admired, smoking crack, sniffing coke at a young age. I seen what it did to you. I have no interest in it. I also have an understanding of how people go through, because some people, they say you're not weak because you have a drug addiction problem. You're right. It doesn't mean you're weak because you fall victim to drugs. It doesn't mean you're weak-minded. It's just everybody is different. And everybody responds through hard times differently. You know, you lose your mom, your aunt, your uncle, your grandmother, something. Everybody deals with pain differently. Some people can sit there and cry. They can mourn somebody. Then they can get back on with their lives. Others can't. And they need something to mask that pain they're feeling. Others just can't get over things so bad. They can't get over things so easily, so they need something to help them get over it, and they turn to drugs. But it's not even just that now. Nowadays, people might just get in a car accident because, like I said, a lot of these drugs are pharmaceutical. You might get in a car accident and then they subscribe you some Percocets and you taking it for long enough that your body becomes dependent on it because Percocets are technically an opiate. They're opiate, and we talked about opiates, which create heroin and stuff. These pharmaceuticals are making it. And we're not going to talk about the fact, since we're not going to talk about history, we're not going to talk about Bayer, one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies, actually used to sell heroin. Yes, they used to package and sell heroin. We're not going to talk about the pharmaceutical company used to do that. We're not going to get into it because I know y'all don't want to get into history, so I'm not going to talk about the history of that. But the point is, it's so easy to get into addiction now. It's so easy to get caught up in it. It's not just dealing with pain from loss no more. Then we got to think about our young children. We got to think about our youth. I got 2 young sons. I told y'all this. I got 2 young sons. I got to worry about my 2 young sons because peer pressure is another thing. And the worst thing about it is you got all these different drugs. I started the show off by talking about, rest in peace, Mac Miller, who overdosed to, he had a serious problem with, I think, lean, drinking lean, which is syrup, which is promethazine mixed with, I think it's Sprite. They call it dirty Sprite or something. I don't really know how these mixtures go. But anyway, it's a promethazine cough medicine mixed with some other kind of soda, and they drink it and they call it lean. And it caused Lil Wayne to continuously have seizures before I think he got off it. Mac Miller, rest in peace, is gone. We had Demi Lovato, who just dealt with an overdose, and thank God she's still here, and I think she's trying to get help with her overdose. But we have a serious problem now. We got all these type of drugs with lean. We got synthetic salt, like bath salt. We got all these different type of strands of weed and stuff. And we got young kids who are dealing with peer pressure. You got peer pressure. See, when I grew up, yes, they had weed, and all my friends smoked weed. All of them. So surprising that I never done it. Probably like, you had to smoke weed. I really didn't. And the crazy thing about my friends is they knew that I never wanted to smoke weed and they respected it. Yeah, they all smoked it, but they would go away when they had to do it. If we in a house and we having a party, they'd go in a different room and smoke the weed. They never tried to peer pressure me into it. They never tried to talk me into it. They respected the fact that I didn't want to do it. But we don't have that with kids today. We got all this social media and stuff, all this pressure. We got the music. And I'm not going to sit here and try to talk about, well, it's the music problem that they're promoting drug addiction. They always promoted drug addiction in the music, people. Curtis Blow. What do you think Curtis Blow stood for? Think about it, people. They had a song back in the day called White Lines. What do you think they was talking about? Sniffing coke. Like, it was already there. You had Scarface. Come on now. He was the biggest drug dealer in the world. Guy came from rags to riches. Listen, come on. So stop the nonsense and make it look like all this stuff just happened overnight and this is something new. Then you got people who say, well, you know, they don't care about drug addiction until it hits the white communities. That's not true either. Listen, drug addiction affected the white communities back in the early 1800s or the mid to late 1800s. Trust me. When they was smoking cocaine, Coco Cola, when they was putting coke in their drinks, where do you think that was feeding? It wasn't feeding the black community because Coca Cola was putting their drinks in segregated water fountains, okay? And them segregated water fountains, and the only people that could drink the Coca Cola was white people. So black people wasn't allowed to drink Coca Cola, and it was very addictive. And one of the reasons that Coca-Cola stopped putting Coke in, since we're not going to talk about history, is because the segregation of black people is the reason they stopped doing it, because of segregation. But we're not going to talk about it because you're not interested. But it always affected the white community. The problem now is these drugs are becoming more mainstream. The fentanyl is becoming more mainstream when it kills people like Prince, when you got Michael Jackson overdosing, when you got Whitney Houston overdosing in a tub, when you got these celebrities overdosing, it's becoming more mainstream. A lot of people didn't really care about the really effects of cocaine until Len Bias, for you who watch sports, he was a #1 draft pick for the Boston Celtics who died on draft night after sniffing coke for the first time. Nobody really, in that time period, really understood how bad cocaine was until Len Bias died. And it's the same thing with fentanyl and the drugs we deal with now. Nobody really understands it until it really affects your home. It's like all things. It's a very taboo subject that we don't want to talk about. Back in the day, you had to worry about your family members stealing your car keys or stealing your TV or your toaster and selling your toaster. You come home from work and they stole your toaster and sold it on the street. You see somebody walking down the street with your new Nikes on because your family member stole it. Nowadays, it's different. Nowadays, you got to worry about them raiding your medicine cabinet. raiding your grandma's medicine cabinet for their Percocets or their other drugs. Then you got Molly's and you got all these synthetic drugs. And the problem is with these drugs, people, is that a lot of these drugs are made in a lab. And when they're made in a lab, they're not naturally drugs. See, a lot of these older drugs, even though they were addictive and they weren't no better, they were actually drugs just made, just pulled from the ground. So when the native people were sucking on coca leaf plant, I'm not saying it was right that they was doing coke, but they wasn't manipulated with all these chemicals. They wasn't mixing opiates with heroin or heroin with what's it called, morphine. I almost lost train of thought. It wasn't mixing with morphine. But we're not here to talk about that though. I'm going off subject right now. I'm going on this big rant, and we need to get back on subject we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about family members. What do our family members need? What do they need to get off drugs? Well, if you look it up and you research how to get off drugs, what they'll tell you is you gotta weigh the pros and the cons of what drug addiction. Do you really need these drugs? Should you really do these drugs? What kind of effect these drugs are having on your life? That's the kind of stuff you gotta have. You gotta have those kind of conversations with them. That's what people will tell you anyway. You gotta talk to them about the pros and cons. Reality is, if you're dealing with family member drug addiction, here's the truth, okay? You can't make them become clean. It's not going to happen on your time. What you have to do is, you have to support them. And what I mean support them is, I don't mean give them the money. I don't mean give them the money, and trust me, if you have a family member that's on drugs, trust me, at some point, they convince you to give them money. And believe me, drug addicts are the most convincing people in the world to give you money. A bill collector couldn't get money from you as fast as a drug addict. A person that's selling you water or food couldn't get money out of you faster than a family member that's on drugs. I'm telling you, they can tell you some crazy stories and make you feel guilty as hell that you don't give them money. But you got to fight and resist that emotion and that feeding that drug habit. That's one of them. You have to resist it. You can't turn your back on these people. If you know somebody that's going through a mental problem, going through some issues, help them before they get to the part where they start depending on drugs. Try to hit it off on the path. I know you're busy. We all busy. We all got a lot going on in our lives, but we need to take the time to help our neighbor, help our family members, help our sisters, our brothers, our moms, our dads, our aunts, uncles, grandmothers, kids. We have to take time to talk to them and help them through whatever they're going through. Just because their problem might not seem as big as yours, don't mean it's not having a huge effect on them. We gotta truly understand what it's like to be on drugs. What are the effects? What is their body going through? What's the dependency that they're having? That they will risk these drugs over their children, over having a relationship with you, over jobs. We have to get real about it, people. We got to do our research. We got to do our homework. Listen, we're going to change this show to a taboo subject because we talk about a lot of subjects that's taboo that nobody want to talk about, but I really don't care because my job is to inform you. And the reality is, you need to be informed on what's going on with drug addiction and the effects it's having on people. Trust me, you don't really understand because you're not going through it. Unless you're addicted to something, you don't truly understand what addiction means. You're relying on it. Your brain's telling you, even though you don't need it, that you need something. I don't need them sneakers. I really didn't. I got more sneakers than I could wear. But my brain was trying to tell me I needed them sneakers. I'm not trying to make light of it or compare myself to a person with drug addicts, but reality is that's the kind of thought process you have when you're addicted to something. Your brain just tells you that you need it. We got to talk to our children. You know, we always complain about our children, but we got to take time to actually have a conversation with our children. I get it. You don't want to be your children's friend, and you don't want to make your children think that you're their friend, but sometimes you got to step down to your children's level and talk to them and be their friend. Because if you're not willing to talk to them about these taboo subjects, about drug addiction and the importance of trying to stay away from drugs, when they go to these festivals, when they go out here in the community, when they go to school, when they're hanging out at the park, and somebody pays them some laced weed, for y'all know what laced weed is, something that's laced with some heroin or some coke to it, and then they're sitting here tripping, and you picking them up at the mental institute, or they now stealing your TV or stealing your pills. Before we get to that point, you need to stop, get off your high horse, and have a conversation with your children. Talk to them about it. Be open with them about it. Stop trying to hide the fact that you did wrong. If you did drugs before, talk to them about it. Listen, your grandparents did too. I told you. Coco Cola was putting coke in the soda. People was doing coke, morphine all over the place, so everybody was doing it. So I'm sure somebody in your family, whether it's your grandparents, great-grandparents, did drugs at some point. So stop feeling ashamed about it. It's okay to talk to your children. It's important to. It's important. The police are running around with Narcan trying to stop the reversal of drugs. We have all kinds of counseling agencies who's going around doing needle exchanges, trying to prevent the spread of AIDS. They're also giving out free Narcan, but we need more done. And a lot more we have to do is within our own community to take this serious. The fentanyls, the bath salts, these lace drugs, it's becoming a serious, serious problem. I'm not saying that we never had a problem, but this problem is everybody's problem now. And until we stand up and we truly are trying to fight against it by supporting our family members, talking to them, loving them, and showing them that they have us and we're here for them, it's going to continue to be a problem. And if it hasn't affected you yet, it will. Meth labs are everywhere. Meth labs are everywhere. It's so easy to get these drugs. Trust me. You can't hide from this problem. This is not one of these problems that we can hide from. This is not one of the problems we can ignore. I know you're tired of hearing me talking about the government and stuff, and I'm not going to talk about them. What I'm talking about right now is the drug addiction and that we need to help our family members or loved ones that's dealing with drug addiction, because I know for me personally, I don't want to get a phone call that any of my family members overdose. I'm sure you don't. I'm sure you don't either. And if you want to prevent drug addiction, if you want to prevent and save your family members, your loved ones from overdosing, the time is now that you need to step up and show support. Call that family member as soon as you turn the show off. Call that family member up. Tell them you love them. Get on the internet and Google like you Google everything else and find out more information on drug addiction. What can you do? We all can do something. And I don't mean giving them money to buy drugs. We all can do something. Figure out what you can do. I want to thank you for listening to another episode of the Past and Present Podcast. I'm your host, Alan the Great. As always, please subscribe to the channel, share, like, comment. Let me know what you feel about the video. You can always contact me, Past and Present Podcast at gmail.com. You can hit me up on Facebook, Past Present on Facebook, or even on Instagram, Alan the Great on Instagram. All this information will be in the description tab. As always, please join me next week for another epic show where we give you quality information, great shows, and we talk about taboo subjects, no matter what it is. I love y'all, I thank y'all, and I'll see you next time. So, until next time, stay tuned.